Welcome to part 2 of our podcast on the Lean Human Capital 2013 Healthcare Recruitment Metrics Benchmark Study. You know, David, I don't think you made the title of that study long enough. I think you should add a few words next year.
It's a tongue twister. Say that three times.
I know. I'm not even going to try. I'm Rebecca McNeil, by the way, Senior Education Manager, and I have from Healthcare Source, and I have David Zari here with me, founder of the Lean Human Capital and the Recruiter Academy. So David, let's just jump right into this and keep discussing the study results. I noticed that on average, 73% of positions are filled in less than 60 days and 27% of all positions take more than 60 days to fill. What factors do you think influence this?
Yeah, and by the way, this is a trend that we've seen consistently over the last 4 years of the study. You know, 3 of every 4 positions get filled very quickly, and then the rest, or 1 in 4, get filled not so quick. Two big drivers. One is just an inefficient process, making sure the managers are following, setting service level agreements, leaning out that process. You know, with the value stream mapping exercise we do regularly with groups, we find that there's 40% of the wait time associated with filling a position. So think about that. Of time to fill, 40% of the wait time is associated with waiting on the manager, either giving feedback on a resume, after an interview, or waiting to make an offer. So that's clearly one area that's influencing this drive towards, 27% being filled in over 60 days. The second, quite honestly, is the ability to source qualified candidates for your critical, difficult, or visible to fill positions. We call those CDV recs. So sometimes it's just hard to find good talent, and we find that there's clearly some areas where folks can improve with respect to sourcing. So those are the 2 biggest drivers.
Okay, and it's very interesting. You know, we talk a lot here at Healthcare Source about hiring manager accountability, and of course that's one of those things, having a service level agreement in place or something along those lines to make sure that hiring managers are following back up with feedback in a timely manner. And I did also notice that over 1 in 4 positions are filled in 118 days, if I'm correct, and that seems quite high. Is that 1 in 4, a CDV type of position, or were you surprised by that metric? What do you think is influencing that?
Well, yeah, exactly that, and that kind of drives to that last point I just made about sourcing. No, I'm not surprised, because this has been pretty consistent the last 4 years, that 1 in 4 positions are being filled in 118 days. You know, when you compare that to the median time to fill, so again, this is where you have to unbundle the recs, or I'm sorry, unbundle the data and look at it granularly. You know, if your overall time to fill in our study was around 50 days, but 1 in 4 is being filled in 118, 3 of 4 are being filled in 25 days. So the 51 is not representative of what's going on. So to that 118, it seems high, but it's really, again, mostly related to either that inefficient process we talked about or sourcing. And a couple points on that sourcing piece, because as we start to really dive into and work with organizations and figure out, okay, what's the root cause? If you're saying we just don't have enough qualified candidates, it usually boils down to 3 things. Either A, they're not dedicating enough time to it. They don't have specialized sourcing efforts. Or 2, the people that are doing the sourcing don't have the competencies, or 3, don't have the skills. So simply put, if you don't dedicate enough time to it, or even if you are dedicating time to it, if the people don't have the competencies and skills, you're not going to see the results. And that's why we're not really surprised to see that, because when we work with organizations, we're finding out that they don't spend the time, and the people doing it don't have the competencies and skills.
Right. Well, speaking of time, during your webinar on the study results, you mentioned that thousands of hours are wasted on non-value-added activities. And of course, as a technology provider, that just made me think, how can recruiters and talent acquisition professionals use something like an applicant tracking system to identify some of these non-value-added activities?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, all the data that we pull for responsiveness efficiency should be coming from your ATS. And, for example, with position manager, all those key metrics that we have in our study, they can pool. So there's reports created there. So you can't manage what you don't measure. So the first thing you can do with your ATS is make sure you measure, right? And then you can manage it accordingly once you know how you're performing. So that's number one. The second with your ATS is is using, your preference questions and your knockout questions up front to really figure out who you're going to connect with early on in the process. So to help with that upfront funnel, right, as you get candidates that apply through your sourcing strategies, how can you manage that funnel using validated questions? And then I would say to couple that would be using a validated screening tool like staff assessment. I mean, it's clearly these are all best practices. Whenever we see organizations that are very efficient, they're utilizing their ATS effectively, and they have validated assessment questions, which giving the managers confidence that the recruiters are sending high-quality people, hence they don't need to see more, and they become more efficient.
Absolutely. Now, again, on time, it was interesting to see that it looked like only 12% of the applicants that applied to those organizations that you surveyed were actually hired. Does this mean there's a lot of unqualified candidates? Does it go back to time wasted on non-value-added activities? What's your reaction to that? What do you think might be going on there?
Well, there probably is a lot of unqualified candidates, but I think it's really more systemic of a few things. One, how you're posting your positions out there. Are you really making it clear who is a candidate and who is not a candidate? A lot of job descriptions don't really do that. They work on minimum requirements, which opens up the box to say, hey, I'm a candidate for this. Boy, I could do this. So that's number one. I think the second thing is your sourcing strategies. I really struggle, quite honestly, with social media strategies today. I'm a huge believer in them. I understand the need, and we're big proponents of it. But with that said, it should be still targeted sourcing strategies. For example, if I just open up on Facebook and let all my friends see all my jobs, well, I might get a lot of unqualified applicants that apply, and now I have to deal with that situation. Now, if I have a good assessment tool, if I have a good ATS product, like Position Manager up front, yeah, I can, but still, we're getting unqualified candidates to apply. And whenever you have to tell a candidate that they're not a candidate, that's not a good customer experience. So I think those are the biggest things that we work on is what can you do sourcing-wise to help that? And then, of course, on the back end, use your technology, your ATS tools, and your validated assessment tools to help then manage that funnel.
Absolutely. It's quality, not quantity, when it comes to candidates, I think. So thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in, and be sure to stay tuned for another episode of Just in Time Education.